I guess. I don't know. Hello, internet. Okay, so we are recording and we're just doing a little CLO introduction. This is our first class with the program anyway. So we have a layout that is not dissimilar to Photoshop and Illustrator, right? It kind of has the toolbars and then panels on the right. It also has a couple panels on the left, and then it has like these drop-down menus at the top. So it automatically opens with a 3D mode on the left and a 2D mode on the right. And each of those modes has different toolbars. So we have a 2D toolbar and a 3D toolbar. All of these panels are customizable like in Photoshop and Illustrator. So you can like pop out these panels with these little menus. And you can put them on top of each other. So if you wanted to like just work on the 2D mode or just work on the 3D mode, but I would rather they be split so we can pop it back in there. So it's all customizable, and you can also customize like where the toolbars sit and which all the panels and stuff as well. So on the left, we're going to get an avatar in there by double clicking on avatar. So there's this panel called library, and it has garment, avatar, hanger, fabric, hardware and trims, materials, and stage. And step one, we're going to get an avatar in there by double clicking, or I guess just one click on avatar, and then it brings up this menu underneath. So whatever you click on here, it has a different menu within this little subsection. So in the avatar menu, we have 5 folders: female V2, kid V1, male V2, meta human, I have not played with that yet, and 3D shape. So we're going to choose female V2, or I am. You could choose male V2 if you wanted to do a male.
It's just differently body types.
Oh, well, that's good. So the way these folders work is this top left folder always brings you back. So if I double click into female V2, I can go back to that first folder by clicking on that top left folder. And then if I scroll down in female V2, I can see the different avatars. So we can choose an avatar. So you just double click on them, and then it will load it into the 3D space. So rotation, to rotate around the avatar in the 3D mode, you center click and drag. Oh, sorry, that's pan. I guess you right click and drag for 3D mode. For rotation, right click and drag. Center click and drag is pan. And then normal clicking just selects things. And you could probably click and drag on objects to move them around. You kind of need the 3-button mouse because you can't pan otherwise, or it's more difficult to. But that's how the navigation in the 3D mode work. You can still click and pan with the center click on the 2D mode as well. And you can see that when we loaded in the avatar, there is this tiny, well, she's not tiny. That's actually the scale of a human. There is a silhouette of the avatar there. Wonder if we can check the units. I'd have to look that up. Display, environment. All right, well, I'll have to look up checking the units because these don't like look like inches. Oh, okay. If we zoom in, they look like inches. So that might be 10 inches or something useless. Or 5 inches maybe. That's all editable. I just, it's not coming to me immediately where you can edit the units. let's get some clothes on her because right now it's very inappropriate. So again, under this library tab and under garments, we can click on, there's actually 3 t-shirts in there, female t-shirt, and male t-shirt. They're the same.
What's the difference between the two male?
We have 4, so I think one of them
Oh.
is with all the planes, so like the one that has 3 planes, and then the female one has one with just the front plane, and then one with 3D plane, so the sides included, like that. So there's one of those, and then one of those for the male one, and then one of the male and female, just the front and center view.
Oh, I don't know. It's probably the same. It's probably basically the same. So you could choose either of these female ones. I guess I'll choose the one that showed all 3 sides. It might just be that that was like saved or added more recently. So we can maintain the current avatar size and pose. That's fine. Or you can open the size and pose from the garment file, but she will be in the same pose. And we can hit OK. And then this is already sewn, so it can be fun to play with. And then we don't really have to know how to sew when we just are playing with this. So for those of you that just want to get in there and mess around, I'm gonna maybe start going through some of the tools. So if we hit simulate right now, it will sew this together. Bam. And then while the simulation is running, it stays on. While the simulation is running, you can click and drag on the garments and you can pull on the garments. So that's with this like second tool, the select/move tool. So with this, you could make like small adjustments to the to how things are hanging, just like you would in real life. So that's that second tool. I'm going to stop the simulation now by clicking on that. It's also the space bar, I believe. When you hit the space bar, it will start simulating. Yeah, and then you can also hit the space bar to drop. So if I wanted to freeze this with it being pulled in this direction for whatever reason, I could hit the space bar while I'm holding it, and then it will freeze out there until I'm simulating again. I'm going to move to the 2D side so we can see the pattern laid out there, and we can manipulate this pattern. So with the top selection tool, which is just called transform pattern, this is where, like, if you wanted to, you could scale the pattern, and you may actually need to so I'll hit Control Z. You may actually need to rotate patterns occasionally. You can rotate using this tool, and you can also move the patterns using this tool. So that's more like the black selection tool in Illustrator, how that like moves the whole vector. So that's kind of how that one functions. Then the one right below that is, what is it called? It's just the edit pattern tool. It's also Z on your keyboard. This is the one that allows you to edit individual anchor points, etc. So if I want to make this longer, like into more of a t-shirt dress, we can click and drag a selection box around all of those, kind of like how you might edit a flat in Illustrator. You can select more than one anchor point. And then if you click and drag on one of the lines, it will move it down. Sometimes if you click and drag on the anchor points, it gets weird. But if you click and drag on the lines that you've selected, it will move. So we could like lower all of that together. You could also adjust an anchor point individually, or you could select, a line and move the whole line. So we could select both those lines, move them together like that. It didn't like that my corners were twisted on that, like there was a overlapping line. Like if we were doing this, we would get an error message. It has to be a shape with no intersecting lines for it to be a pattern in this. These t-shirts are automatically symmetrical, so like a change you make to one side is the same change will happen on the other side. So I could choose both the two right anchor points on the front and back and drag them to the right, and they will they will be bigger they'll be bigger on both sides. We'll get bigger on both sides. Your change will be reflected. So then you can hit simulate, and in most cases, this type of intersecting fabric will automatically work itself out. And if it doesn't, you can kind of pull on it until it does work itself out. So there we go. We've now made a t-shirt dress just by making that longer. So that's the edit pattern tool. There's also, I like to use also the edit curvature tool. So for example, on these patterns, we are now left with two straight lines here in a V, or I would prefer this be like a curved hem. So if I click and hold on my edit pattern tool, I can use the edit curvature tool or hit C on my keyboard. Oops, edit curvature, not edit curve points. And then I can just click and drag on any line and it will automatically have curves. I'm teaching on a Mac in the morning and a PC in the afternoon, so I'm kind of messing up my commands. So you can do that. You can also use the edit curve point tool to edit curve points, which are another type of point. I went over that in that video on Monday. There's both curvature points and curve points in this. I'll talk more about them in a second. And then with the edit pattern tool, if you click on an anchor point and it has handles, the handles will also be visible. So I guess that's something to keep in mind too. Yeah, so we can make this nice and flat there. Cool. So you guys should be familiar with like this type of drawing from Illustrator, right? A little bit, vectors and, okay, excellent. Yeah, so you don't have to use the curvature tool if there are handles. You could just edit the handles. You hit simulate when you make updates for it to be transferred to the avatar. So we could instantly give her long sleeves. The sleeves are also symmetrical, so any change I make to one will automatically be made to another, and we'll learn how to make garments like that in a bit. But can make the sleeves longer.
They're automatically like one to another, like the changes automatically saved from one side to the other side.
Like front to back?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so for like to do this, I selected the right anchor point on the front and then I held shift and selected the right anchor point on the back. And then any changes I made are happening to both the front and back. But that's more manual, where I'm intentionally making the changes to both of them at the same time. Where left to right for these is what's symmetrical. And will stay symmetrical automatically. So if I hit simulate right now, these long sleeves might give me a hard time. Are there any questions though? I don't know. Am I going too fast?
No.
What is the,
So I'm extend the shirt and I'm like pressing control, but it's only moving one side of it.
like, do you select, you're trying to make it longer?
Yeah.
So you select around all the bottom anchor points with like clicking and dragging a box. With the edit pattern tool. And then you can drag on a vector, not on a point. The points are messy for some reason. Any other questions right now? Yeah, and then click and drag on the line, not the points. Yeah, click and drag down.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions right now? Thank you. We're gonna have work time where I can come meet with you all too. But no, I'm happy to help. And then so we've learned how to edit a existing vector. And then if I hit simulate right now with these sleeves, they are like really chopped up when we get further down her because it just extended a bunch of polygons and straight lines from her shoulders. And if I hit simulate right now, it might be pretty hard for me to pull this stuff back onto her arm. Like maybe you could do it by like stretching it way out, but it's pretty tricky. So instead, we are going to reset the 3D placements. So with this sleeve selected, I'm going to right click and choose reset 2D arrangement. And so now these are just 2D shapes again. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, right click, reset 2D arrangements. And now we want to place these back onto her arms. And to do that, we need arrangement points. So there's all kinds of display options in each panel. In the 2D panel has different display options than the 3D panel. So in the 2D panel under the avatar display, which looks like a little avatar, we are going to turn on show arrangement points. So she's going to get blue dots all over her like she has chicken pox. And these dots allowed us to arrange the patterns in 3D space before we sew them. Because, you know, we're making things from 2D to 3D. So this is one of the steps involved in like transitioning from 2D to 3D. So with this one selected, I have it selected, it's yellow. We're going to click on one of the blue dots on her arm, and it's going to automatically wrap around her arm, and it automatically applied that to the other side too. So if we wanted to, we could choose one of the blue dots that's like a little bit higher up as well, either one. And now when we hit simulate, it won't be so jacked up. There we go. So those are called arrangement points. So I can reset all the arrangement points for this by clicking this button in the 3D mode, which is called reset 3D. Reset 2D arrangement will make everything completely flat again, and you'll have to kind of start again. So to do that really quick, we reset the 2D arrangements. You can also select everything and right click on the 3D mode and choose reset 2D arrangement, or you can do that one piece at a time. Doesn't have to be all or nothing. And we're going to turn on, I'm actually going to select all of these and just move them a little bit to the right so we can see her. So we're going to turn on arrangement points under the avatar display, show arrangement points. Then for the front piece, we're going to click on one of the dots on the front of her. For the back piece, we're going to click on one of the dots on the back of her. And you can further arrange. So like this isn't looking great. So I can move them in 3D space using this gimbal. So it won't be like stuck on her body, but as long as they're generally in the spot. This one, I believe, goes to the right arm. So we will click on the arm. Sometimes it's tricky. You have to like zoom in and out to get the arrangement spots to click. And then we have the collar. So we have the right collar and the left collar and the back collar. So those are arrangement points. And this is now the 3D arrangement. So when we hit simulate, it should start working out. The skirt needs some help where I need to pull on it to get it to flatten out, but it sorts itself out eventually. The fabric does not want to be intersecting generally. If things are sewn correctly, it'll generally like work itself out with a little tugging. during simulation mode, and these computers are running really nicely. So that's working well. And yeah, if we want to go back to that 3D mode, we can choose that 3D arrangement. We can choose reset 3D arrangement, and it will set all of the garments back there. Or if you just want to reset one of them, you can right click and choose reset 3D arrangement for just one of them. So can you guys see the difference between like reset 3D arrangement, which sends it back to that like tube mode, and reset 2D arrangement, which sends it back to 2D? Cool. Okay, and you guys know where to find the arrangement points? Because that's a common one where people don't know where they are. Those are the arrangement points.
Shift F.
Oh, apparently it's Shift F, yes. It's Shift F, but it's also under avatar display and show arrangement points. So yeah, so we'll turn them on and we'll place this sleeve on that. And that simulates.
How do we get the avatar to go 360 again?
Right click and drag in the 3D mode. Other questions? So what should we do? Let's draft like a rectangle cuff. And we'll make this a cuffed garment, just so we can go over some basic drafting tools. So we'll put this to the side and we'll actually make these like straight down. So the cuff will be more dramatic, more dramatically gathered. And we'll make this straight, like that. And then I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. So the polygon tool is the fourth one down, and that's for like drawing, like kind of like the pen tool. So we'll get to that in a moment. But the rectangle tool is what I'm going to use to make a cuff. And then we're going to make a symmetrical cuff for the other side too. So we'll go over how to do that. So if we just click and draw a rectangle, and what, it probably doesn't need to be very big. And then if we right click and choose symmetric pattern in sewing, and I'm right clicking in the 2D mode, and this should be visible somewhere in the 3D mode. Yes, there is the rectangle in the 3D mode. So I'm going to right click in the 2D mode and choose symmetric pattern with sewing. And this is for a pattern, like a whole pattern, like a sleeve where you need a whole second one for the other side of the body. That's what this symmetric pattern instance is for. So symmetric pattern with sewing, and then we'll go ahead and we'll click to place it under this other sleeve. And it does kind of show up in real life in relationship to this avatar silhouette here. And then we are going to use the show arrangement points and sew this onto the, or sorry, we're just going to place it onto her wrist. So there we go. And it's automatically on the other side because we made a symmetric pattern with sewing. So like I drew this rectangle and I right click and shows symmetric pattern with sewing. On the 2D mode, I right clicked. And then I guess I'm going to shorten the sleeves a little bit because they look, I don't know, they look just like a bit long. And I'm going to lower these. Maybe they do need to be a bit longer than that. And then if you adjust them, it can be nice to use the arrangement points again. So you could select it and then click the arrangement point. Okay, so now we are going to get into the like our first sewing project. Actually, I'll just shorten this, it's easier. I just want everything to be clear so we can see the sew lines. And first off, we want to sew the cuffs together. Or I can shut off the arrangement points. She doesn't need to have chicken pox anymore. So we want to sew the cuffs together so they're like a little circle around her wrist. So we can grab our sewing tools. So all the sewing tools are in the top right-hand corner, at least on my menu. We have edit sewing, we have segment sewing, free sewing, and check sewing length. So those are all represented by a little sewing machine symbol. And we are just going to use segment sewing right now. So I'm going to click that. And then we are sewing these two sides together. So I'm going to click here and click here. And it should appear between them. And it should also be visible on the other side. So those are our sew lines. And then we need to sew the cuff onto the sleeve. But actually first, let's make sure that the cuff isn't like too big or anything. So we can make this smaller until it's like tight on her wrist. That's looking a little better. So you can automatically adjust things like that. And then again, with segment sewing, the most important thing with segment sewing is that the T notch, I always struggle with what to call this thing. So like if I'm closer to the left side of this segment when I click, the notch will be over there. And if I am closer to the right side of the segment, the notch will be over there. And you want that to be the same on both things you're sewing. So I could sew this backwards by accident and things could end up twisted. So we want to make sure the notch is on the right and then make sure the notch is on the right. And then all of our sew lines are parallel. And then when we hit simulate, get sucked in. And now that that is like nicely sewn, we could go ahead and make this smaller again, or sorry, longer again. I think this is still in millimeters, even though I chose inches on that first project, on that first page. So I should figure out how to change the units. But I guess it doesn't matter for this moment. So that was our first sewing line. Things can end up twisted, like I said, so that's something to watch out for. Like if we reset the 3D arrangement of the dress. Yeah, we don't need to reset the 3D arrangement of both sides, but I'll just show you this. So all of these lines are parallel going side to side. Actually, you don't need to reset the 3D arrangement. You could just select that piece and move it out. It doesn't have to be reset. All of these lines that are connecting the sides of the dress are all parallel. Those could be twisted, so I can delete those and I could draw them backwards, for example. So if I were to use my segment sewing tool and click on the top of one and then on the bottom of the other, all of those lines are twisted. And if that gets sewn, they'll all like come up and be sucked into one point together. So that is not, and it will never settle down. It will always try, like the fabric will always be fighting with itself. So even if this is the look you wanted with like gathered sides, that's not the way to accomplish it. Any questions on anything so far? All right. If I did want ruched sides, this is a nice way for me to introduce the property editor. There's a lot of stuff you can do in the property editor on the bottom right, and the stuff will even change depending on what you have selected. So like different tools and different things have their own properties, like fabric has different properties than the pattern pieces. So if we choose just this one line, like if we really did want ruched sides and we choose this line, we can go into our property editor and tell it we want that to be an elastic line with a lot of strength and a high ratio, I believe. And that will make it like really puckered. So let's hit simulate now that we've done that, and we can see what that looks like. Is not gathered at all. So what do we need? We need strength and lower ratio. Yeah, okay, lower ratio. So now that line has to become like you sewed it with elastic thread or put an elastic through there, and the lower the ratio, the more it will shrink. So if you did want to do something like that, it should be with this. Also, if you want to do something with gathering that actually looks good, we need to change the particle distance. So right now the particle distance, anytime you draw something new, the particle distance is set to 20 millimeters. It's always in millimeters, even if our units are set to inches. And to do something with gathering, we need to lower that particle distance to like at least 10. So particle distance is how many triangles make up this mesh, like in terms of like how it's actually 3D. I think we can turn on the fabric mesh. Yeah, so under garment rendering styles, we can change it to mesh. So you can see how many rectangles it's made up of, or sorry, triangles it's made up of. And then if we select both of these and lower the particle distance, we don't need to change the particle distance for things like the sleeves. Actually, the sleeves are a bit puffy at the bottom, aren't they? So maybe we should change them. But if things aren't gathered, you don't need to lower the particle distance. It kind of is easier to leave it at 20 most of the time. But we can try lowering the particle distance to like 10, and we should be able to see this think and update the mesh to be a smaller amount, smaller triangles. Yeah, so see much smaller triangles now. And switching back to textured surface, and we hit simulate again. Those are looking like a lot cleaner renderings of all of that gathering. So that's particle distance, which is something that comes in handy for rendering things like gathers and stuff like that. Okay. So I'm going to draft something from scratch just to show you how that works. So we are going to use the polygon tool, or you can hit H on your keyboard, and it's the fourth tool down. And we previously used the rectangle tool to make a pattern piece, but this time we're going to draw it like we're drawing in Illustrator.
Ability to hide what's already there, or do we have to delete the layer?
Like all this stuff.
Right.
I don't know. I was maybe gonna add on to this, but I would just we could just save it if you wanted to, and then make a new project. Can you hide them? Sometimes when you hide them, they're like still there and they still interact with things. Like you can freeze and then deactivate pattern and sewing, or sorry, you actually don't have to freeze. You can deactivate. So yeah, so you're right. You could select everything and you could right click and choose deactivate pattern and sewing. And then those would not interact with anything anymore. They wouldn't be like interactable fabrics. And you could like move this off to the side in space. You may actually also want to freeze it, and then you could move it off to the side if you wanted to, or you could just start a new file. I don't know, I guess that works. So that was deactivate pattern and sewing, and then I also froze it. So that won't mess with anything now. So I guess since she's nude again, we'll draw her a little bodice or something, a little tank top. So we've got this polygon tool. Any other questions before I move on? Please always interrupt me. No, yeah.
Is there a way to like add a point to an already existing?
Add a
line?
point.
Like, you can-
Yeah. So you've got a rectangle and then what do? You just what do you do? Right click and choose split.
Oh, okay. Or
Great,
wherever-
great question.
Wherever you.
Yeah, and wherever
split
you
it.
right click, it'll split, but split is also kind of unique because you can tell it to do a uniform split or like split with different lengths for like you can get pretty specific with it, but if you don't do anything, it'll just do it. If you leave this setting on, it'll just do where you click. Great question. Other questions right now?
Whenever you were doing the cuffs, how you like reflected that onto the other side, like the center control?
Yeah. You right click. So like, yeah, right click and then symmetric pattern with sewing. So there are other symmetric patterns. There's like if we hadn't done that, there's just symmetric pattern where it won't automatically sew the same thing for each piece. And then there's instant pattern where like that would just be like we just made a copy of it and but it won't automatically sew, but I think it will automatically updates the pattern. But most of the time I end up using symmetric pattern with sewing if I'm making a symmetrical object. Other questions? So polygon tool, and I'm basically going to draw a flat like I'm in Adobe Illustrator. So we can click and drag to drag out anchor points and handles and click to make straight lines. And then if you want this to be symmetrical, at some point you need to right click. So before you get to the end, like in the armpit or at the top of the shoulder, actually, any one of these points here, I'm going to right click instead of left click, normal click. I'm going to right click and I'm going to check off mirror creation. And then it automatically mirrors like over what's been drawn already. So instead I want to mirror over the y-axis, which is the up and down axis, and we can hit OK. And now it's automatically going to draw. And then when you come back to the beginning, it will close. So here, I'll do it again. You start drawing, we'll draw like the back now. You start drawing. And then at some point you right click instead of click because it is going to add a point there, which is weird. But you right click and we want to tell it to mirror the creation in this little menu that pops up, and the axis should be set to the y-axis. And then we can hit OK. And then maybe a better decision for this would have been to copy and paste it. Because there is the option now of like making all of these line up. So they'll be exactly the same. And I could do it this way where like I line up the center. Yeah. I line up the, but it's like snapping weird. There we go. We can use our arrow keys to bring it up. And then I could manually make all of these points the same by clicking and dragging them to match up with the other points. So that's one option. Or instead of drafting a whole new piece for that, we can copy this piece. So just copy and paste. Oops, not mirror paste. Paste. And then we can drag that up. So we have a front and a back, and then now the sides are the same and stuff. This is going to be tight on her, but that's okay. So with these patterns drafted, or do you guys have any questions on drafting a pattern? Should I do it again? You right click at some points and choose mirror creation to get a mirrored pattern. If you aren't making a mirrored pattern, like let's make a sleeve or something, we can just come around to, oh, sorry, that's the internal polygon tool. We can just come around to the beginning. So we draw a rough sleeve, very rough, I guess. You could just come back around to the beginning and it makes a nice shape. And then you could do symmetric pattern with sewing. Okay, those are ugly though. So then to get these on the body, I know I've gone over it before, but we turn on show arrangement points. And then for the front, we click on one of the center front pieces. And for the back, we rotates, and click on one of the center back pieces. The tempting thing is to just like move this piece back here, but you really want to use the arrangement points because like now this fabric is actually wrong side out. So things could get really confusing if you sewed it like that. So we really want to use the arrangement points and not just move the pieces around in space. The arrangement points make sure that the wrong side faces out. And then we could sew them together. So I could grab my segment sewing tool and I'll click on one and then click on the other, and we can make sure that the lines look right. You can also click in the 3D mode. So I can actually click over here. Yeah. And we just want to make sure that those notches are both like towards the inside of the neck. And it automatically sewed it on both sides. And again, I can shut off arrangement points now. We can click with the segment sewing tool in 3D mode as well. The other sewing tool is the free sewing tool. So this tool isn't dependent on segments. So I'm gonna undo. Let's say that we have a bunch of segments in the sides, so we can split there. And like there's different amounts of segments. So there's like 2 segments on this side and 1 on this side. So using the segment sewing tool would lead to a mismatch where things would get sewn awkwardly from big to small, and it would cause a gather. So we don't want that. So instead we can use the free sewing tool, which isn't dependent on segments. So we can click. So you click twice for each sew line. So I'm going to click at the beginning of the sew line and the end of the sew line. So I went from the bottom to the armpit. So we're going to do the same thing over here, hem to armpit. And I can actually see it on my 3D mode. So I know that I'm sewing the right things together. And then I clicked there, and now those are sewn together. So that's the free sew tool. It's not dependent on segments. And we can hit simulate. And this should be pretty tight on her, but here it goes. You can see fit maps and things. This isn't, I don't know that this will necessarily get into this, but it does say that this is unwearable in 7 spots. Everywhere it's red, it wouldn't actually fit on the human body. So that's something to keep in mind if we wanted to actually like make this fit this person. You know, and I guess it depends on the fabric too. But we can make this wider if we want. And we can instantly see the fit update here as soon as we hit simulate again. Yeah, there we go. Now it fits. Just a little tight under the armpits. So we could select like both right armpits again and lower those. And I can use my arrow keys to lower them a set amount. And when we hit simulate again, still a bit tight. I don't know. So we could keep messing with it, but that's the type of thing you can do with the fit maps. Okay, so let's shut that off. So 3:20, so I've been talking for like an hour. Yeah,
It's like wrong side out, doesn't.
yeah, you want to use the arrangement points. So I would reset the 2D arrangement so it's like flat again, and then turn on my arrangement points. Because basically, if you just like move this to the back, it's probably going to be wrong side out like that, where you really want to actually use the arrangement points because they will automatically make it fits, like be right side out. Other questions?
Well, it's too wrong back.
Oh, okay, I'll come look then because that's weird. Any other questions?
This may just be me, but I can't find a way to like open up the like extra little menu within some of the
You
tools.
click and hold, it doesn't.
Oh, okay, it's hold on. I can think it was right click.
Oh, you've sewn it backwards.
Oh.
So delete your sew lines and try again, and before you hit sew, make sure that none of them are crossing, like literally they could be crossing through the avatar, you know?
How do you delete something?
Great question, great question. So the sew lines were wrong, so the question is, how do we delete them? So the edit sewing tool is the topmost of these sewing tools, and you can just click on a sew line and then hit delete on your keyboard. Or you can right click and choose delete sewing. Also, we have something called the check sew length tool, which this is used to make sure that like when you're drafting, the things that are being sewn together are the same length. So there's a tolerance here of 5 millimeters, but if anything is more than 5 millimeters difference, it will show up red. Yeah, so now when we choose edit sewing, these ones show up red because one side is 127 millimeters and the other side is 85 millimeters. Let's try to figure out how to change the units, but that's the edit sewing tool. You can also edit the like sew lengths of these tools, which is useful with the edit sewing tool. So you can click and drag on the sew lines themselves and extend them or make them shorter. I would like to change the units. I'm forced to Google.
I'm trying to do these. Oh, you go to settings at the like very top.
Okay, the one that's covered by Zoom.
Yeah.
Settings. Thank you.
Insert interface. Mine was also one.
And then do you have to restart or did it
No.
automatically change? Oh yeah, it is in inches now. Okay. Thank you. So I think we should take a break and then for an in-class activity, I'd like you guys to like customize this t-shirts and then I guess we should learn how to save. So if we go to file, save project, that is going to save your avatar and like everything is going to save this whole workspace. So you probably want to save that on your like external hard drive or on maybe something in the documents folder. but then you would want to upload it to your Google Drive. So we could name this T-shirt experiments. And under file, save as garments, this would be only if you wanted to save something to live in this garment library. Theoretically, it might stay there forever. I don't know how it works. But a garment is something that could show up in this library and be like easily accessed. So we're going to experiment with that. But I think for now, just going to save as project and just saving a project is good.
And then for like submitting assignments, you want to do the screenshot of the drawing?
We're going to go over that next week, rendering.
Oh.
I want you to render them. So that's like taking a high quality photograph of them instead of a screenshot, as opposed to a screenshot. Other questions? Yeah. Oh yeah, I can help diagnose. Yes. Okay, so let's go to break until 3:50. And then we can come back and as an in-class activity, I'd like you guys to do some sort of customization to the t-shirt and maybe try to use an elastic line like I did, so I could come around and show you how I did that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. You can customize. I know you're already doing that, but just I want you to play around with it and ask me questions, basically.
Okay.
A boosty.
Now I don't know how to fix it.
All right, goodbye, internet. Stop recording.